Okay.
I think that was the end of the roll call, correct, Kathy?
Yes.
Okay. So I guess we'll go right into reviewing the draft minutes. Is there any, unfortunately, I wasn't able to attend, so I don't know if there was any corrections or changes needed.
No comments? Okay, since you can't take a formal vote due to the lack of a quorum.
Yep.
I'll just keep notes here that there weren't any comments, and we'll try this again if we get additional members. Yeah.
Okay.
Kathy, I texted Blake Lucas and also Ariella Lovett. Blake replied back that he cannot make it. He had said this date didn't work for him, so Blake won't be on.
Okay, thanks.
Hey, and Kathy, can you, I'm sorry, Chuck's with what group? I'm sorry, I didn't get that.
Mass Waterworks Association,
Okay.
president, yeah. And I have assessment program updates next. We're ready for that. Let's see, the committee's annual report to the legislature was distributed by DEP's legislative liaison on June 1st. So that was all set. The revenue unit is proceeding with billing this December as usual. The drinking water program will email the rate letter to all public water systems like we did last year. The committee was on board with this at your last meeting, and we will provide hard copies to water systems who request them, or for any water system that we do not have an email address for. Last year, we had requests for hard copies from, I believe it was 2 or 3 PWSs. So I think everybody's pretty happy with getting an email with the rate letter. Let's see, since the last meeting, we reviewed with drinking water program staff the correct time codes to use for performing work funded through the assessment. That work includes training, compliance assistance, and other outreach to public water systems. And those are really all the updates that I have right now. So things are progressing smoothly, fortunately.
So I guess we'll just move on to the, are there any discussions for the rate? I mean, do we want to even discuss the rate and recommendations, seeing that we don't have quorum?
Well, I can go over the spreadsheet that I show you every year, and I will be emailing that to you, as well as the usual materials that you receive about how much water was pumped last year. That all comes from the annual statistical report. You may recall I usually have a little summary about that, which I have and will email you. So Nicole, could you put on the screen the spreadsheet for the rate, please? We'll see what it looks like on the screen. You might recall it's kind of a big size-wise spreadsheet. There it is.
How does that look? Can you see the whole thing?
I can see it. Can other people see it okay?
Yes.
Okay. So really what we want to look at, this is pretty simple, is the column that I highlighted, $9.50 rate. That's the current rate. And last year, according to the annual statistical report, public water systems used 225,698 million gallons of water. So when you take that figure, multiply it by the assessment rate and the flat rates for the few unmetered water systems, you get a grand total in that column of revenue from the assessment of $2,154,000 $294. So that's what is expected for revenue at the current rate for the billing that would take place next December in 2022, because you're recommending the rate for next year.
Mhm.
And that would fund approximately 11.86 full-time equivalent employees at DEP. And just a couple of notes I had, water use was up a bit, even though the population of Massachusetts was down a bit. The number of unmetered systems was 96, and that is roughly what it usually is for varying reasons, like water systems that have meters that broke, or they're new water systems. These are all small systems that haven't finished installing meters, or various reasons like that. And you'll get a copy of that, like I usually send you as well, that list. I also send the list to our DEP regions, so they're aware of which water systems do not have meters. Any questions? Any questions?
Not at this point, not for me anyways.
Okay. Just for your information, in calendar year 2020, there were 1,644 public water systems. 7 were registered last year and 16 were deactivated. All right, I'll turn it back over to David.
Again, we can't do anything with it really because we don't have that a quorum. So I guess we'll just move on to the drinking water program updates.
David, I'm sorry to interrupt, but does anyone have any comments on the rate recommendation? We could at least report back.
Well, I will say that from Mass Water Works perspective, it shouldn't be increased at this point. I think I was just trying to pull up the budget numbers, but certainly the legislature has seen the value in funding DEP's line item even more than the assessment rate. So I don't think that there's a need at this point to raise it.
All right, thanks, Jen. Okay, thanks. Thanks. I think you can move on, David.
Okay. Again, I think we'll move on to program updates with Yvette.
Okay. Welcome, Safe Drinking Water Act Assessment Committee members, and also welcome to the Waterworks presidents that have joined us. What I want to do is to just give you some information on what we've been doing and what's keeping us extra busy. So one area that I think you're going to hear a lot about is our modern office move. And I think by now everyone knows that we're all working remotely, some going into the office in the region and some timeframes as needed. But the Boston office is going to be combined with other state offices at 100 Cambridge Street, and that will not be final till next April. The regional offices will be back in the office, some combination in November of this year. And the state is working on a reservation system office time. Our footprint, I believe, will be reduced by 50%. So saying all of that is to tell you there's a lot of work that we have to do to clean our files out. We won't have the file space that we had in the past. And that leads us to getting more into paper reduction and more into electronic ways of communicating and maintaining our information. So you're going to be seeing a lot more opportunities to submit stuff electronically, because we want to go from submittal to archiving, reviewing and approving, and doing a lot more electronically, because we just don't have the opportunity to maintain paper. Also, we are in different locations, and we'll be in different locations for some time. I think out of the whole working remotely, what we have done is that we have spent more time working with systems on compliance and technical assistance. And we've been doing it remotely. There've been more one-on-one phone calls reminding folks to get certain information in, where especially my group in Boston, we have spent a lot of time making sure that water systems are aware of their responsibilities. And we're trying to do it in new and improved ways, using more user-friendly posters and definitely phone calls. So I'm sure many water systems have heard from my staff in Boston, and I anticipate that the same thing happen in the regions. Insofar as staffing, I normally give like a chart showing where we've been and where we are now. So I'll just mention that in 2013, we had 66 staff working on the program, or 66 FTEs. In 2020, we had 71, and today we have 77. So we have been able to backfill positions, and we've actually gained some positions. We've gained some positions specifically around PFAS, which is not Safe Drinking Water Act required work, but it's definitely drinking water work. We are looking forward to additional positions as the details are worked out on the various funding streams, both from the feds and from the state. And we're all in a kind of like a wait and see position and how those work out. But we do know that the areas that we have to increase our staff will definitely be the lead and copper rural area, and also more time in the sanitary survey realm, because the responsibilities are getting more detail for water systems, and they're going to need more support from us and more engagement. So I look forward to working on staffing plans with DEP management as we move forward. Another bit of work that we're doing in 2021 is on regulations. We have been working on a set of minor corrections to our Rtcr regulations. And these corrections are based on EPA responding to our primacy application and identifying areas where we needed to make corrections. They are minor in nature. It will not impact the regulations themselves, but they're things like typos, references that we have to correct. So this minor package will also include any corrections that we noted for PFAS. And for example, we're going to be adding the additional analytical methodology that EPA came out with after our PFAS regs went into place. We will also be removing and replacing any use of the term grandfathering. That has negative connotations for EJ and diversity issues. So we have to go through our regs and pull those out. We also had a directive from I guess, mass regulation guidance that we need to remove web links wherever they're not federally mandated. So we're going through and removing those and referring to like a general web page. And it makes sense on one level because, as you know, we've had to change web links based on new directions from the IT managers and the web page managers. So all regulations across EEA are going through those changes. We hope to have everything wrapped up by the ending of the year, since these are minor corrections. We also have a bunch of typos that just seem to be a part of the process because we draft our regulations in Word, and the Secretary of State preferred software is WordPerfect. So going back and forth between the two, there are always these little connection things that we have to go back and fix. So we will be fixing as many of those as we can find. So that's it on the minor corrections. But then we are going to be preparing for the big LCRR and also certified operators. And I know Mass Waterworks is particularly interested in the certified operator regs. So that will be the next package. And we're actually starting to work with ASWA on the LCRR, even though EPA is not final. We are working with ASWA and paying very close attention to any words that we get out of the federal process. I do want to mention that to gear up for the LCRR, we know that the inventory, whether the feds require it or not, all water systems need to have the inventory of lead service lines done. So to encourage that, support that, we are working with the Clean Water Trust to develop a grant program that we hope to unveil by the ending of the year that will provide funding to water systems to develop their plans. And we're also working on an electronic tool to report that information. Because as I mentioned before, we have to go into paper reduction. We want to see things electronically, approve them electronically, file them electronically, and reduce all of those extra pieces. So we're actually just starting the process to scope out what that would look like. We will be reaching out to some water suppliers who've already done some work in that area, because whatever we come up with, we want to make sure that everyone can do what they want to do and still provide us with the minimum information. So that's in development or starting to be scoped out. The grant piece is starting to be scoped out. Moving from LCRR, actually, before I move on, yesterday we met with EPA and there's Region 1, and they still have not received any signals from national as to what's going on with the LCRR regs, but that's not unusual. But all of the New England states are in agreement that we need to get our water supplies ready for the inventory portion, and wherever we can find funding to support that work for the systems, we need to do so. So,
Yvette, would it be appropriate to pause your review, because Rebecca said she had to leave, and it looks like right now you have a quorum, so you could vote on those things that you need to vote on? Is that appropriate?
I will go back to Kathy on that, because if now we have a quorum, we should probably just use the opportunity to get into
Sure.
the program. So
Sure.
Kathy.
Thank you. Welcome, Neil. Merritt and Sean
Sorry, I'm
Osborne.
late.
Hi. Okay, so David, Neil, David was acting as vice chair and running through the agenda. So we're going to go back to reviewing the draft minutes from the last meeting, please.
Okay.
Any comments on those?
I have no comments.
Okay, if you wanted to entertain a vote to approve them, that would be good.
Can we get a motion to approve the minutes of our last meeting?
Motion to approve?
I'll second it. Tom Holder.
All in
Thanks.
favor? Aye.
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 All opposed?
Thanks. Was that
moved.
Jim? Was that Jim that made the motion?
That was Sean.
Sean, okay, thanks.
I was about to, I got beat out.
Yeah, I know. It's tough. You got to be fast with that buzzer.
I came in late, so I had to do something.
Thank you. Okay, let's go back to the rate discussion and recommendation, please. Neil and Sean, before you came on, we had shown, Nicole, can you put it back, put the spreadsheet back up there, please? I had very briefly gone over the spreadsheet we usually look at for a rate recommendation, and the comment so far from Jen at Mass Waterworks was not to recommend an increase. And you can see the column $9.50 rate. When you take into consideration the water use reported last year and the rate structure, 2.154 million will be generated. That's for next year's billing. And I was just looking for your usual rate recommendation to give to the Commissioner of DEP who sets the rate.
I am fine keeping the rates the way they are. Do we have a motion to that effect?
I'll
I feel
second
this,
it.
yeah.
And I wanted to remind, everybody that the meeting's being recorded for the two people who came on. Thank you. Okay, who made that motion, please?
I'll make the motion, Dave Condrey.
Okay. And who seconded it?
I'd be happy to, Jim Savage.
Okay.
Okay,
Yeah.
all those in favor of
Aye.
keeping the rates the
Aye.
same? Aye.
Aye.
All
Aye.
opposed? I see no one, so I think we're all
Okay.
set.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I think that was it for the votes, so we could go back to Yvette.
Okay. Did I just do something? Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we
Yes.
can, yep, you're fine.
Yes,
Something happened and I'm not seeing anybody, but that's okay. Going back to my remarks, there was a question about what will grandfathering be replaced with. It will depend on the context in which it was written. In some cases, it was specific to allowing sampling results for a certain period of time to be accepted. So we have to actually go through and look at each instance and what was the intent. When we use the term, we've generally used it because it was also included in the federal guidance to us. So we will make sure that, we follow that. We just can't use a one-word replacement in most cases. And it will not impact the work that we're doing because all of this is historical. So going forward, we definitely won't be using the term again. So I had just gone through LCR and trying to get ready for that and gearing up with for a grant program with the Clean Water Trust. I want to mention cybersecurity because that has blossomed into a lot of information and a lot of, a great need to make sure everybody is paying attention to it and getting all that they need to deal with it. It's an area where most states have indicated to ASWR and EPA that we don't have the expertise in this area, and maybe the responsibility is not on drinking water, depending on where and how the public water systems are set up, because in some cases, cybersecurity is handled by the municipality versus, the individual water system. So we're still working through what that should look like. EPA is providing us with a minimum list of questions for sanitary surveys, which we will incorporate. We are about to bring on a part-time TA provider who can answer questions for water systems, but also will be doing 1-hour webinars on various topics within cybersecurity. And this person should be on board September, hopefully, and this will be available to all. EPA is providing free assessments through their contractor. I haven't heard of any mass systems that have taken EPA up on that offer, so we will be heavily promoting that. And actually, one of the minor reg corrections is to include the word cybersecurity in our ER section. Right now, it's part of that other category of situations that a PWS should plan for. We're not going to use the term because the term also shows up in the OEA program under EPA. So this would be something that we would need anyway for our primacy conditions. So we will just include that under the one of the other categories. Actually moving away from cybersecurity, one of the new areas that we're paying attention to is supply chain chemical issues. And we are going to be doing some outreach just to raise awareness, to encourage planning, to encourage sharing information with us, to encourage water systems to work with their neighbors and the mass warn. And that should be coming out in the next 30 days. This is something that we are working on with EPA Region 1 and the other New England states. But we feel that it's, at this point, is about education and also working with EPA and other partners to get ahead of potential chemical shortage situations. And, it's one of these things we're not quite sure where we will, be most helpful, but we are here to support and to work with our partners. For example, there have been concerns with fluoride chemicals. So we've been working with DPH, who has been working with CDC, and DPH is going to be putting out some information for the cities and towns that fluoridate. So we'll work on that with them, and on any other chemical situation, we'll be working with partners. I want to mention our increased compliance and enforcement work. And this is directly in line with what the Safe Drinking Water Act assessment is all about. We have done everything that we could to get water systems to submit the ASRs, their CCRs, any of the reporting components that if you don't submit them, you're going to end up with enforcement. So we took that on out of the Boston office, and we made phone calls to everyone. We contacted partners that can support them, like boards of health. And it actually worked out because just a handful of systems were left that are right now we're sending out enforcement to, but we think this is the model that we will use going forward. Full court press, individual phone calls if we have to, so that at the end of the day, we can say that we have done everything possible. Another example of our, extra C&E is support is on the AWEA certifications, that even though that's direct EPA compliance and enforcement program, using our Section 70 assessment funds, we have been going down the list of the systems that did not certify according to the EPA requirements, and we have been following up with them because that's what we do as part of our Section 70 assessment funds commitments. So if you're a system that, for whatever reason, you've forgotten something, you'll hear from us before it gets to the point where we have to issue enforcement.
Yvette, excuse me, Rebecca has to leave, but she had a question in the chat. Rebecca, do you want to ask your question, or Yvette, can you see the chat?
Sure, I'm sorry to break it. I just have to leave because they're starting some construction. They have to be there. We and many of the small systems that I have to start, that I work with, have to start our Pfas in October, and we're the only systems that don't get a free test. Everyone else, and I'm wondering if there's some way that our first test for this can be somehow paid for, like everybody else who. The bigger systems that started in July, for instance, I know their first tests were for free. So.
Well, I'm Rebecca. Everyone is supposed to get a free test at the beginning. You're supposed, so you know what, just offline, just get in touch with me, because no, everyone gets one.
Everyone gets the free one, no matter if it's in October, because the last I heard, the last free tests were in July, I think was the last one, so.
No, we're continuing to offer free tests. In fact, we're about to do an outreach effort to try to get folks to come in for that free test. And I'm looking at Jim because we're going to engage with the RCAP and Mass Rural Water to do this press for the smaller systems, to just kind of keep in there. We're going to make phone calls at the very end. But right now, we just want to do a lot of outreach because we want everyone to benefit from the free testing.
Okay, so that's fine. That I didn't hear about that October was free. From what I had heard, Bob Hoyt was saying, try sampling in September and then write a waiver for your testing in October so that September counts, which sounded very complicated and unnecessary. So I'm glad to hear that that's not recommend or what we were required. All right, I'll wait for the email. And so just the first quarter that we sample will be free, and then everything after that will be on our own. Is that correct?
Right, we just want to get your baseline. The baseline is free.
Okay.
Yvette, I think there was some confusion about the extension of those funds. I don't know that was widely broadcast, that it went beyond June 30th. So I think Rebecca is probably not alone in her assumption that the funding ran out on June 30th.
Yes. And I know that not everyone keeps up with our monthly P director, but we will keep reminding folks in there. And you're going to get the direct email as well. And my goal is to make sure that everyone gets that free sample that first time out. So, let me know. We will find a way to make it so.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Have a good weekend, everyone. And
Hi, Rebecca. Thank you.
Thanks,
Take
Rebecca.
care. Bye.
My last set of comments are on PFAS. And actually, no, yes. I should briefly mention before I go to PFAS, the Lead in Schools effort. As you know, EPA provided extra funding under the WINS grant for Lead in Schools, and that program is going as well as can be expected. Obviously, the COVID times just shut everything down, so we're now trying to find new ways to reach out and to encourage testing. We're also keeping an eye on how the program will change under the LCRR. So we are working with EPA Region 1, even though we're working blindly, trying to make sure that the program that we have can be tweaked and will be sufficient when the LCRR kicks into place. And one of the things that we're about to embark on is to come up with a program where water suppliers, on behalf of their schools or childcare facilities, can access some of the free sampling under WINS. So we're trying to figure out how we can do that. But that's in the works. We have to work it out with EPA Region 1 because we want to make sure that when the LCRR changes come in, that I don't want to use the term grandfathered, but we want to make sure that what we are doing, someone at EPA accepted it so that when we apply later on, it's all set. So that's in the works. We've also been working with partners, one in particular, Brita Pitchers, and they're going to donate some pitcher filters to childcare facilities to encourage them to get the free sampling. And this will be a little extra thing if they do the free sampling. In fact, we may just be giving it to others, but we have to see how many we get. So that's ongoing. As you all know, there's a new definition for environmental justice areas. There's a new map on MassGIS designated EJ areas. So all of us have to check to see where we need to do outreach in alternative languages. So definitely for the LCCA school and childcare, we are fully engaged in translating all of our documents into other languages. And in fact, we just did a Spanish webinar for the Lead in Schools daycare facilities part of the program. So we are trying to keep up with all of these new directives and be on top of it. Okay, I'm just going to touch briefly on PFAS because that's not a federally required MCL, but it is a state program. And as you know, we're busy with the free sampling program. We're developing all of our C&E templates, and we're just working through that program step by step. It's one of the most intricate programs because there's so many connections with other MassDEP program areas, but we're walking through it. I think that we're doing a great job trying to get all systems to have a free baseline sample and figure out when and what is appropriate notification for the public. And then we have grant funds available for treatment if systems need treatment, and we engage on a point of use treatment study using UMass, where we're going to look at point of use treatment in various locations across the state. Have that that information available for private home, any small public water system who might be interested in using point of use as a treatment option. And we're thinking ahead to our TNCs and that group that's coming in later on. So there's a whole lot of information on our website on PFAS, and I'm hoping that folks are taking a look at that and letting us know when there are things that that need clarification so that we can do that. And I'm sure you're all familiar with the grant programs that have been out there for PFAS. There's been the design grant, and most recently, there's been the interim solution grant program. On that part of the program, we have not released the information on it. I believe there were 9, let's see, how many people applied for that? Yes, we're still in the process of getting approval to release, which systems applied and who were eligible and who weren't. But what I can say is for that grant that we really wanted to provide whatever the systems asked for. So if you were eligible, whatever you asked for, you probably will get that. And there'll be another rounds of that funding probably announced towards the ending of the year to take care of the folks with sample in October. So more to follow. Those are my comments. There are lots of things that we're doing, and I'm open to any questions.
Yvette, I think there are a couple of questions in the chat.
Okay, let me see if I can find them. Can you tell me what they are?
I think going back to your
Yeah.
staffing, update, Chuck had asked, is it just the drinking water program or all of DEP as well that's going to sort of that remote work piece and the
It's all of DEP. I believe some of this information have been released on the web about this the modern office, where it's going to be a hybrid model. Some people are going to be working in the office, some people are going to be working from remote locations. And when you come into the office, you have to reserve like a hotel space. So you don't really own a desk in an office, you just reserve when you need to come in. And there'll be more electronic tools available to us. In fact, I came back from vacation and there's this report that tells you that only the person who's working can. And since I was on vacation, I looked at the report and it was like, my God, she doesn't work at all. So I mean, there are lots of these tools that they're developing for us to track this hybrid model going forward. And we works out.
If I could ask a follow-up question to that, Yvette, because I think, I've heard from some public water systems as well that, DEP really is a customer service agency in many respects. And so this remote working, sometimes the hours are off of when, the water systems are in, or, they're getting responses back, strange times, or there's some delays. So, is DEP considering sort of reaching out to the regulated community to get input on how they think, the remote work is going from the customer side of things, the regulated community side of things? Any discussion about that?
I haven't heard any discussion about it, but knowing how we operate, I expect that it will be. I know for myself that going through the COVID remote times, that we actually committed to responding to every single question. So it meant that sometimes we worked a little bit later, but we answered every question, we documented it, and we filed a response electronically because we I wanted to be able to check whether we were responding and how timely we were responding. And yeah, there were some responses by email at 10 o'clock at night, but we were trying to make sure that we were responsive to all. And they're definitely looking at all of those things. I'm looking back in the questions. I saw the one on grandfathering.
Yeah, yes. And Bob Prophet had a question also about using licensed operators.
And managers as possible and consultants instead of putting more full-time positions.
So Yvette, let me just kind of, the biggest concern that I normally hear in my industry is the disconnect between the agents of DEP and the operators that are actually out there doing it. So my question is basically, is there an avenue to use the professionals of our trade as a consultant, opposed to just adding on more personnel to answer questions, I guess?
So that's a good question. And what we do right now, because we have not been able, well, there's a period when we weren't able to bring on state staff because there is a cap, there still is a cap on state staff. In drinking water, we use the SRF set aside funds to have contracts with third parties. So right now we have a plan for one retired operator, but manager to work part-time with us, one in each region. We've actually been struggling to fill 2 of those slots. There's one in the Southeast region that we have not been able to fill, and there's one that's statewide that we've not been able to fill. So yes, we do that. And that's a part of our outreach effort, is to bring on retired certified operators, retired consultants, folks that are familiar, and have them work along with us to make sure that water suppliers are getting what they need. And we will continue to do that. We may do more of it. So for example, I mentioned the cybersecurity person. That person has been working down with water systems and wastewater systems and others. So we are definitely doing that. And we're always looking for names, for who we need to try to tap. It's been a very tough time finding folks that want to work part-time with MassDEP, because we tend not to do these as full-time because we want to get really experienced folks, and they probably have a lot of other things that they do. So. Yeah.
I'm curious, could you comment on how the QA/QC is going for the PFAS results, and sort of going through the backlog and getting the information up on the portal?
In fact, we talked about that earlier this week. By the ending of this month, there will be no backlog except for what's coming in. It took us a moment with the QA/QC because we were building out our review template at the same time we were doing the work. And we were training the UMass staff who are assisting us with the QA/QC, and we are training our own staff at the same time. So it took it a bit to settle it out, but the report this week is that by the end of the month, there'll be no backlog because we're trying to be ready for the October sampling. Things are moving much quicker to the portal. And I think that we're in the right space right now because we've gotten a lot of the kinks out of the process. Building a program from scratch that we did for PFAS. Normally we have the EPA procedures behind us, but when we're doing it on our own, and we're doing it with a very finicky database system where we don't really totally control how things get done. It's been a challenge, but I think we're where we need to be right now. And that's not to say there won't be a quirk tomorrow and you'll call me and then we'll try to figure it out, because in the data world, there are always little quirks.
Yvette, how many community systems have PFAS issues right now as we speak? Do you have a number on that?
Okay, actually I do. Now, every Friday, we put together a management report that we do internal, and then this information is actually on the web, but you have to kind of tease it out of the story map. So we have, for the largest systems, over, I think it's like number over 20 entering the distribution system, 20
large systems?
20 community systems.
Okay.
And
But just to
they're
clarify
all
that,
in-
so that is 20 who are still providing over 20 parts per trillion.
Well, they may be off, depending on the size, they may be offering bottled water, they may be working through their short-term plan and their long-term plan, but it's 20 that have not installed treatment or done something. So it's 20 out of 525 community systems. And all of that is on our story map. So if you go there and you look at individual systems, where they are in their process.
So last time I looked at the story map, Neil, last week or so, and the story map, if you drill into it, it says whether or not they're providing treatment, but there's about 60 systems, and those
That's
include,
what I counted.
it's beyond community systems, because it does include some transient, I think, like the gyms and the schools.
So there are 53 community systems with results over 20. Out of the 53, 20 are somewhere in our CNE process and are still providing water over 20. Does that make sense? So
No.
you have to drill into the information. There are out of 525 all community systems, 448 are non-consecutives, because remember, the consecutive systems are not required to sample because the parent is. Out of that 448, to date, 301 was required to sample, because remember, we have some smaller ones in there. 147 community systems, non-consecutives, are yet to be sampled. Okay, now for everyone that has sampled, out of community systems, 53 had results over 20. And out of everyone who was sampled in the community system world, 20 of them are left where we are working through their C&E and trying to get the treatment options, in place.
I'm sorry, what is C&E?
Compliance and enforcement.
Okay.
Got to stop using these abbreviations. So it's 20. And here's the thing. The information that I have may be a little bit different with what is on the web because of the delay in getting things up. But yeah, I actually I can share this with you guys, this little table that I'm looking at. But every Friday, I get this little table together, and the stuff on the portal may be a little bit delayed, but yeah, we are tracking as closely as we can. And for the 20, we're somewhere in the process working with them on what are they doing and making sure that they do whatever public notification and where they are with what is their option. Maybe they're trying to hook up to another systems. Maybe they're working on treatment, so those details I do have, but it's a little bit more.
If you could email that to me, that'd be great. Unfortunately, I'm one of the 20. So I just
Okay.
want, so I just want to tell the townspeople that, we're not alone. I don't know if it really means much. to
No,
them,
no one's
but,
alone here. I'll send it to Kathy and
Also, our town is requesting a Zoom meeting with someone from DEP. Can you recommend someone that we could reach out to?
you have to go through the region. So I would just put it in writing and the region will set it up. And if the region feels that, the Boston office needs to be there, they will invite us.
So I would go through Jim McLaughlin?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yvette,
Yeah.
I too would love to see that table. So thank you for sending that. Does that table also include just number of detections? Like, we certainly know those over 20, but I'm particularly sort of concerned about those folks that are in the 10 to 20 parts per trillion that could change at any moment. And we've seen that. I mean, we've seen people who test at 13 one round, and then the next round they're at 19.5 or 20.5. So are you going to that granularity that you have the 10 to 20 as well?
No, my table is all summary, so it's not going to give you that level of detail. Yes, I don't, yeah. That's that type of information. We do have it, but we have to like dig into the data and pull it back. And the regions are working one-on-one with systems, so they would more be using that level of information to just, keep people on track. Yeah. So I will send the table to Kathy and there'll be lots of disclaimers, all kinds of stamps all over it because it is subject to momentary change. It changes by the second.
All right, thank you.
So that's all I have. And I would say, please call me, email me if you have any questions. There, we run 50 different boutique programs and we're juggling them at all times. And we are as responsive as we can be. And some of you guys know that. We will call you back at 8 o'clock at night if that's what it takes to get to you, but we will do that.
Yvette, I think you just, you acknowledged earlier that, the water systems have a lot of obligations in front of them. And I just want to reinforce that. I mean, I'm hearing sort of people at a breaking point between, especially mid-year when you had your AWEA compliance, you had your CCR, you got your ASR, you've got your lead and copper sampling you're trying to do, you've got new source approval. It's getting harder and harder to operate these systems as you know. And I think that at some point there just has to be a discussion at DEP about what's the most important thing that we need to concentrate on here, like, because it is getting to the point where people just can't manage it. And I see some noddings of heads, and I think that is what we hear. And certainly we know the job we do is very important to public health, and we have to maintain public health at the highest priority. But at some point it's got to give. We don't have the people, similar to you not having the people to manage all of this. And so, I think DEP needs to take a strong, hard look at, what maybe can we let slide a little bit in terms of getting other priorities taken care of. And I know that's a hard conversation, but I feel like if we don't start thinking about what's most important, we're going to end up with a lot more compliance issues simply because something's got to drop in a 24-hour day that, they have to get it all done. So I just kind of throw that out there on behalf of my membership. And I think others who represent water systems would probably feel the same way.
Thank you for stating that. I will tell you one thing that has happened on the Safe Drinking Water Act side is that we now have a primacy condition where I have to report every quarter on the status of the LCR. This is something that was added after Flint. They've now come up with the requirement that I have to report quarterly on all of the health-based violations, which would be, bacteria, disinfection byproducts. And that's now a quarterly report. So the Safe Drinking Water Act assessment is to support the Safe Drinking Water Act program. So for everyone on this call, those are the priorities that we have to make sure that we use the Section 70 funding for. So I would say all of your MCLs, we really have to make sure that we deal with those. The monitoring and reporting, we have stepped up our reminders and chasing folks around, but I think you start with your MCLs. And I totally agree. This is an awful lot. And I think water systems are going to have to think about how they do this, because in this new space that we're in, you have your public, coming in with lots of questions, and you want to make sure that you're consistent in following the federal and state requirements. And in this case, it's our drinking water requirements. So it's a tough, very tough position to be in. And whatever you think we can do to be helpful, but just know that I am reporting back to the feds on the health-based violations, and they are detailed. They want to know every last thing that we're doing with these systems. And I expect they will roll up into some national report at some point.
I think there was a lot that was embedded in the new congressional infrastructure package about reporting on health-based violations. So I do agree with you that that's going to continue. And as I said, I think no one would dispute the health-based stuff, but PFAS is a Massachusetts thing, so it's an additional hurdle for folks. And it just, I think when we talk about the recruitment and retention of our employees, we've all heard, as you hear about the next thing that's coming, I'll be retired by then. And it's like, sure, that's great for you, but we don't have a lot of people filling those spots because it is becoming so difficult. So I'll leave it at that.
I was basically going to say the same. The real reality, the scary reality is that trying to find someone to sit in this chair after I leave is almost impossible, because my staff, the people that work under me, my operations managers, my plant managers, they all look at me and say, no way. They're happy to work in the plant. They're happy to be the operations manager, but they are not the one that want to sign paperwork anymore. And the reality of everything that's going on out there, and they see how much effort that needs to be put into it. The new generations are 9 to 5 or 7 to 3:30, and then they're out the door. So my fear is that succession is just going to end at some point, because nobody's going to want to jump in these seats, and then where do we go? We all know, all of us know how hard it is right now getting licensed operators to come in that already have experience, and the ones that we're bringing in are all green, obviously, and we need time to train them up. And honestly, and quite frankly, some of them just don't have the ability to do certain things. So, some people are great out on the distribution crew, but they still need to get licensed, and they're having difficulty just getting licenses sometimes. And then, the treatment side of it, that's a whole nother nightmare, because it really trying to find staff that's able to do so. It's been a real drag. I lost 3 operators in the course of 3 months, and trying to backfill has been horrendous. So I think that's the reality we all have to try to look around. And we obviously know there is not going to be a reduction in regulation. It's just the more chemicals that come out and that we are testing for and finding in the water, it's just going to make it even tougher and tougher to, one, treat, and number 2, find staff capable to operate the plants. So it's going to be tough.
I hesitate to make this next remark, but everything that you're saying is so on point, but is there a role for this committee to put some of that stuff in writing? Because you guys are uniquely placed, because you see this stuff, to kind of give some perspective on what's coming next and how water system management need to think about going forward. Because yes, we're going to have this hybrid model on our side. I don't know what you guys are going to have on your side. You all need to be there touching, and you know, folks have to, maybe the 9 to 5, you got to do more. The people that come in, I mean, they have to come in with this extra passion about, you know, protecting. I don't know, but is there something that you guys in this group should think about putting out or saying to certain places? I'm not quite sure, but think about it.
It's funny that you say that. You know, there's really kind of no hybrid model in this business. I mean,
No?
you know, we get people who ask all the time, "Oh, you're in the office?" Yeah, we've been in the office throughout the entire pandemic, and I think that's kind of, you know, something that's lost on people. These folks are here all the time to make sure that this gets done. And Yvette, I you know, back at the start of the pandemic, we put some things in writing and it wasn't very well received. So I don't know. I don't know that there's an appetite to hear this at some levels, but it's just it's tough. And I think you know, and from our perspective, it certainly doesn't just encompass the drinking water program. You know,
No, it
I mean,
doesn't.
most of the people on this call also have Water Management Act issues they're dealing with, and an expectation that they're being the water police, and that they're coming into compliance, and that they're issuing fines, and that they're, you know, it's just throw drought on it, throw COVID on it, and it just it really does get to a breaking point. I you know, just as a side note, you know, there's this bill out there that would provide 3 years credible service, and I had someone email me today and said, does this you know, go towards my vesting? Because I've been here 7 years. Will this give me the 3 years I need to be vested so I can get out? Like, that's someone relatively new in the, you know, in the industry from a 7-year perspective, and it's just, that's I think. You know, we've been talking about workforce issues for the 15 years that I've been here and working with you, Yvette, on all of the outreach. And it just, you know, I think it's going to get to a breaking point pretty soon. And so anyway.
So think about it. I mean, the new staff that we've brought on, we have 2, and I've never been physically in the same space with them. And then some guidance came out that, you know, even though I'm not their direct supervisors, but the guidance came out that I need to like check in with them each week. So now I'm like adding that to my list, because this is part of how you get someone who's working in this remote thing engaged and try to download, you know, the passion for what we do. So now that's another thing that you have to do, is figure out how you work through this. And we'll do the best we can. But if there's anything that you think would be helpful, you know, just let us know, because it's like Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers. We are doing that dance on the other side. So we're here. So I don't have anything else, but I'm always available. I don't know, Kathy, if you have anything else that you wanted me to mention.
No, that was great, Yvette. I can't think of anything else. Thank you.
All right, Yvette, thank you. I see we have public comments next on the agenda, and I don't see anybody from the public. So I think we're done.
The next meeting is December 17th by Zoom, and I'll send out a reminder about that, of course.
My apologies for being late. I'm trying to run a generator that's about 40 years old, getting ready for a hurricane. So,
right. Yeah,
hurricane, Neil. Now you've got a hurricane.
Hurricane watch for
hurricane,
southeastern
PFAS,
Mass. Yep.
THMs, bring it on.
Wasn't that a hurricane that went through Worcester yesterday? What happened?
Yeah.
Tornado, they said in Clinton.
Yep, yeah, they did. They actually showed evidence of it, actually.
Do
Yeah,
you
I had a
know
river
there's,
going through my garage next door yesterday. It was crazy. It was just absolutely crazy.
do you know somewhere in my Safe Drinking Water Act primacy program needs, I'm supposed to check with every water system after every one of those events. That's part of, so when we talk about prioritizing, we haven't even scratched the surface of that thing that EPA says that, we should be doing. We will do a reach out to say, is there anybody out there? But some states have actually set up a tracking system online where people can go in and say, I'm fine. We haven't gotten to that, but it's in our to-do list. So there are lots of things that are on our list that we just haven't been able to do. And I'm sure it's the same on your list too. So who says, stay tuned and watch this space? So
It's a game of
Thank you.
triage.
yes.
We want
All
to
right,
thank,
thank you. I guess.
we want to thank Bob Prophet and Chuck Dam for coming. You're welcome at all of the meetings. It's good to see you both.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks.
All right,
Thank
I
you.
guess need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn?
Second,
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Okay, folks.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
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 you.
you.
Bye.
Take care, everyone.